Now let us try to understand the different way to control a while loop in Python utilizing a demo program. So first let us clarify the concept of count control loop once again, and then I will show you the Sentinel controlled while loop. So for the count controlled loop, you have to utilize a loop control variable. In our case, I am naming it as loop count because it is keeping track of the count, uh, and I'm initializing it to 1. And then what I have to do is I have to write down the while loop, uh, and inside this while loop parenthesis, I have to write down the condition. How long should the loop execute, or how long should the loop continue? So like this way, loop count less than equals 10. So by writing this, I am telling the Python interpreter that, well, continue the while loop until the value of loop count is less than or equals 10. It started from 1 and continue until it is less than equals 10. So that's the condition. And inside this, what I want to do is I just want to print the value of loop count like this. Let's say this loop count equals, and then the value of loop count. So every time in every iteration, it will print the current value of loop count. And then what I have to do, this is the main part of the main difference, where the difference comes between a count control and the Sentinel controlled loop. So in count control loop, when you want to modify the loop control variable, you have to use some kind of arithmetic operation. For example, in our case, let us do just an arithmetic increment to modify the value of loop count. That is, loop count equals loop count plus 1, something like this. So every time whenever it is modifying, it is just incrementing the value by 1. And after that, let us just print one line explicitly saying that, well, out of the loop, so that we can easily identify when the loop is broken or the loop ended and it came out of the loop. So if I just run this program, as you can all imagine, that it will print the values from 1 to 10 like this way. So here basically loop count is initialized at 1, so it printed 1, and then in every iteration it is basically incrementing the value of the loop count and then printing it, and that goes on iteratively until the loop count variable is equals 10. So, and after that it came out of the loop. Now this modification may not be just incrementing by 1. You can choose like incrementing it by 2. At this point, what will be the output? At this point, the loop count variable is actually incrementing incrementing by 2 in every iteration. So it will end after 5 iteration, and instead of printing like 1 2 3 4, it should print like 1 3 5 7, something like this, because it is incrementing by 2. So let's see the output. Well, as we have expected, it is incrementing by 2 1 3 5 7 9 like this, and then it is printing out of the loop. So that is about the loop control, count control loop. And well, one more thing, instead of this plus, you can utilize any type of arithmetic operation over here which will change the value of the loop count. The summary is, in the modification of the loop count variable or the loop control variable should be done through some kind of arithmetic operation. So that's the main point of the count control variable. Here basically the count is loop control variable is modified by using some kind of arithmetic operations. So this is all about the count control loop. Now let us try to understand what happens if in Sentinel control loop, that is Sentinel controlled loop. Here basically instead of loop count, instead of taking any arithmetic variable, you can take any type of variable, or like let's say I'm utilizing a string type of variable like this in char equals, and I am initializing it to yes. That means in char is a, so, or let's say instead of saying in char you can take anything like in string or whatever the variable name of your choice. So this in char stands for the input characters, and that is in my case it is an input string yes. So, well, that is the initialization part. Since I am not going with the counts, I really do not need to stick to any numbers anymore. And that's why I have initialized it with a string. So now let's say I have to tell the Python interpreter that, well, I want to start the loop. So I wrote while. Now inside the condition, what I need to do is, well, in condition part it does not make much sense to say like well while uh, the yes is less than some other string or not. Well, in case of dictionary it makes sense, but we are not thinking that much complicated. So let's say this yes, no, everything is different types of character. So here basically less than equals in the normal terminology does not make much sense. So instead of utilizing any less than equals, I'm just using not equals. And let's tell the Python compiler, the Python interpreter that will execute the while loop until the in char is not equals no. Until that point, whenever it is something different than no, just execute, keep on repeating the loop again and again and again. So here inside this while loop, let us print the value of this in char variable, just what we did for the loop count variable in count control variable, so count control loop. So I am just printing here in char like this, and then what I am doing is, now here is the main point again, now it's the time for modification. So here instead of utilizing any arithmetic operation like this, here I am asking the user, I will use this input function that is asking the user to enter a new or modified value for in char. So like this. So here actually whatever the user will enter in the Python prompt, that will be stored in char, and the loop will continue until the user input is something different than no. So let's see, and well, before showing the demo, let me just add another print statement over here just to explicitly show out of the loop. All right, so now we are ready to see the output of this program. And before running it, let me just comment out the count control loop so that you can just focus on this Sentinel control loop like this. So I have commented out this entire part, and we can focus only on the Sentinel control loop. So now let us run it and let's see what happens. So in the first iteration, as you can understand, like in char, the value of in char is yes. which is of course yes is not equals no. It is just the opposite. So it is not equals no. So here it will print the value of in-char, which is yes, and after that it should prompt the user to enter a new value for in-char. So let's see what happens, whether that happens or not. So well, that happens. So now it is waiting for the user input. So let me print yes again. So it went inside the loop and print this again. So now it is, so it will continue until the user input is something other than no. But whenever I will insert no in here, and it will come out of the loop, just as you can see in here. So just try to analyze what happens until the value of in-char is something other than no. Until that point, the while loop is continuing. Well, it is not deciding, or it is not modifying the loop on the basis of some kind of arithmetic operation. Rather, it is modifying the loop control variable based on the user input. And at this time, it is actually, after getting the input, it is deciding whether it will go inside the loop or not based on that input. So that's the concept of Sentinel controlled while loop, and this is the meaning of this output. So in-char is yes, so it is inside the loop. So, and it is prompting the user to enter another new value. User input is yes again, so it is still inside the loop. It printed the value of in-char and came asking the user to enter another new value. Now the user input is y, which is again different from no, so it came inside the while loop and printed y, and then asking the user to enter a new value again. And this time it is something like SDFS, which is again different from no, of course. So it printed the value and asking for another input, and this is again SDFS, different from no, so the same thing repeated. Now this is TT, which is again different from no, so it is iterating again. And finally, when the user input is no here, which is exactly, so no, which is exactly opposite to this condition. Here it is checking no not equals no. Well, of course that is false. So whenever the user input is no, this condition is evaluated to false, and that's why it came outside the loop and printed out of the loop. So that's what happened in a Sentinel controlled loop.